Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball. We are back with the Week 6 NFL reactions. I'm Aaron, as per usual. I am joined by Mr. John Harris. John, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. I feel like this week just made me love the NFL even more because I was driving home from work today and I was hearing this sports talk show arguing about are the Bills really better than the Buccaneers and how good are the Chiefs? And it just made me think man, the NFL, I think out of every sport has the most parity when it comes to just so many good teams. You never know who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I was thinking right now, if I had to predict who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl in both conferences, I don't know. There's multiple options. There's a lot of teams in the mix. It's been a fun year of football so far, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah, I mean, we're only one third of the way through the regular season. We're just going to dive right into it. I had a crazy weekend. Not crazy, just eventful. I actually lost in every one of my fantasy leagues, but
I
it'd be
won
like
in
that.
every single one of mine.
Well, there you go. We didn't play each other, by the way, for those that are wondering. So it's not like, we just got unfortunate. But, anyways, jump right into the games here. First one we'll jump into is the Thursday nighter. Tampa Bay Buccaneers took care of business against the Philadelphia Eagles, 28-22. Unfortunately for us, we both picked Tampa, and I think if Philly just went for the field goal instead of the 2-point conversion, we would have covered, or just not gone 2-point conversion either. We would have covered, but unfortunately for us, that did not happen. But regardless, game went kind of the way I think we both felt it did. But I'll let you say what you feel or what your thoughts were in regards to the Thursday night game.
It was a bit of a heartbreaker for me. I put a little bit on this game. I had a nice little 5-play parlay, and I put like $5 on. But if I got it right, I would have won like 340. And because Tampa did not kick a field goal, not only did they not cover, I did not win my parlay. So I missed out on $340 because they didn't kick a field goal. Like I said, I only risked five, so it wasn't like I lost much, but I mean, I was close to getting a whole lot, so it would have been cool. For Tampa, I think they took care of business. I got to watch this game. It kind of felt like they took their foot off the gas pedal towards the end. The score is a lot closer than it really was because Philly, they scored a touchdown late to, make it close. They get the 2-point conversion, and then Tampa just runs the clock out. So it wasn't as close as it looks. Overall, I think I was just, typical Tampa performance. I was impressed that they can win in so many different ways. This wasn't a game in which the receivers really killed anybody except for Antonio Brown. He had a really good performance. But for the most part, it was Leonard Fournette who dominated in this one. So, yeah, impressive game from Tampa, even though it was against a bad opponent. I just think it's always impressive when you can show games where you dominate the run, other games you dominate the pass, some games you win defensively. Pretty good performance from Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say much more than what you said. It's you mentioned the parity. Some of these elite teams that we'll talk about, Tampa's in that discussion. Definitely, they can win. What makes them at least you can win multiple ways, like you're mentioning. This week it was we're going to lean on the run game and the defense a little bit more. The other games is going to be the pass. So good for Tampa. Get that win against Philly and get the extra 3 days rest. I know they've been dealing with they've had some injuries pile up, more than last year. So we'll see how that affects them going forward. But anyways, going across the pond, aka the Atlantic Ocean, to London, where the London game was actually shockingly one of the better games of the weekend. But anyways, the Jaguars beat the Dolphins 23-20. Urban Meyer gets his first win. So John, what are your thoughts in regards to that? And obviously the Dolphins, I feel like, blowing this game per se.
Well, first off, good for the Jaguars getting a win. They fought through all the distractions. They went overseas. I think they're probably the team, just based on my knowledge, that's probably played the most in London. So they're kind of like the home team there, basically. But yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is starting to figure out the NFL a little bit more. He looked a lot more comfortable in this game. I didn't get to watch a whole lot, but second half, he didn't throw an interception in this one, which is different because he's thrown quite a few picks this year. So he played a clean game. The run game was working. I think that overall Jacksonville was just a better team, and it's starting to look pretty bleak for Miami because I know that they have a lot of these, draft picks, and even I've praised them over the last, I don't know, 6 or so months about the draft picks that they've been able to accumulate. But now we're starting to wonder, man, because obviously I would say they missed on Tua considering how good Herbert was and he went after him. The offensive line has looked pretty poor. They don't really have a great running game. I mean, Jalen Waddle was great in this one, but other guys are dealing with injuries, and now all of a sudden, with their star corners out, their defense looks like it couldn't really do much in this game at all. So I'm starting to worry about Miami, especially as we talked about last week. I had them in my playoff picture, and they're now 1-5, and they lost to Jacksonville, so they could be one of the worst teams in the league this year.
Yeah, I think an important thing is factor, as you mentioned, is Tua. And listen, Tua's good. He's a solid NFL quarterback. And I don't want to say that he is this person, but the way his play style is and just ability wise, very Alex Smith-ish at this point. And I think one of the key interceptions late in the game, he's trying to throw the corner out down left sideline and try to just didn't have the arm to do it, to zip it over the guy. And it's just one of those throws that I know when the elite guys, Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, Rodgers, that they'll be able to make that pass. And unfortunately for Tua, he just couldn't make that pass. Couldn't get it past I think it was a linebacker corner. He was sitting in the flat, almost flattish, basically, but able to jump up, get the pick. And from there, I mean, it's just, it doesn't help too, like you mentioned, run game, not nearly. I mean, one of the reasons I lost because I started Myles Gaskin in the league, didn't do anything, and so I don't know if it's on Brian Flores. I mean, obviously it is. He's been going through all this carousel of offensive coordinators past few years, and this year they're doing the co-coordinators. There's two guys doing it. So I think obviously that seems to be part of the issue. And now his defense, unfortunately, now his defense isn't doing well, which is like his main. It's a staple. It's the reason probably why he got hired, and the reason. So it's tough for Miami going forward. I still think I see Miami fans kind of calling for a set. I think you give him another year. It's just one more year, see what the offense and what if they decide to go with Tua or a different quarterback can do. Because like you mentioned too, this game out with Byron Jones and Xavier Howard both out, and like that's where most of their money is. In terms of defense, literally, I think that's where most of their money is those two corners, and it's just tough when your investments aren't there because of injury. Granted, that's where you have backups and stuff, but at the end of the day, you can't replace those two. So, regardless of all that rambling, good win for the Jaguars, good win for Urban. Like you mentioned too, I think it is very important to factor in. It seems like Urban's real. I don't know why it took him so long. Realized James Robinson's pretty good. He's been giving him more carries. He's as opposed to first few weeks where we were concerned about the Carlos Hyde getting touches. Not to say Carlos Hyde's bad, but let's all be honest. James Robinson's better at this point than the Carlos Hyde. So that's my quick thoughts in regards to that. We'll see how it goes for Miami, but good win for Jacksonville. Going on to the next one here is my Green Bay Packers. They took care of business against the Chicago Bears. Or as Aaron Rodgers put it, he owns them. And they beat the Bears 24-14 at Soldier Field. John, what were your thoughts in regards to this game and I guess Rodgers' statement?
I thought it was pretty funny. I sent that message whenever he did it. I was like, oh my gosh. I just thought it was funny because Rodgers spent like the whole week talking about, I respect the Bears fans. They're a great fan base. And then reportedly, according to him, there was some fan in the stands that was like flicking him off or something right after the touchdown. And he says that sometimes you just black out, and he just went, I own you, and did the whole thing. So I loved it. I thought it was good win for the Packers. I wouldn't say it was a very eventful one. It wasn't a big stat stuffing one, but their defense did what they needed to do. Offensively, all their key playmakers are getting involved. For the Bears, I mean, I think there was some moments where they could have got themselves in this one, but ultimately, the Packers were just a better team and were able to win in those key moments. But not a bad showing from Chicago. I mean, they held Green Bay to 24 points. Fields, although he didn't have an amazing day, he threw a touchdown. And it was pretty efficient for the most part outside of the interception. So I would say for Chicago, good building game. You just got to figure out how to score in the second and third quarter where they put up a goose egg.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think in regards to my Packers, I mean, this is one of the reasons it shows a lot of experience. the way Rodgers did. I think it's good. This is why you want the elite quarterbacks. So, for example, early in the game, he was getting sacked. Offense wasn't going. And typically we've seen earlier this year guys like Zach Wilson I've mentioned, and I think we'll mention him later. Sam Darnold, instead of just being patient, letting the game come to them, to start forcing things, making mistakes, and then all of a sudden you're in a deeper hole. So, but credit, this is why you have an Aaron Rodgers, an experienced quarterback and such, because it wasn't a pretty day in the office like you mentioned. Only 195 yards passing. Devontae only had 4 catches, 89 yards. Run game was okay, but still managed the game. And hey, we got it with the win, 24-14. Didn't give the Bears and their offense that you just mentioned was struggling. Didn't give them chances to get going with a dumb interception or strip fumble because he was trying to escape the pocket, trying to make a play. So that was good. But yeah, in regards to the Bears, regardless, they showed a lot of fight. It was a close-ish game. It kind of came down to, I feel like, talent level, and yeah, like you mentioned, offense. I'm not sure if it's scheme. I mean, Allen Robinson has, I feel like, been an afterthought. I'm not. Once again, I know it's a rookie quarterback, and and Matt Nagy's system is already. I'm not a big believer in it, but we'll see how they do going forward. And I'll be interested to see if Allen Robinson maybe is a quiet trade target. Because remember, he didn't want to get franchise tagged. He got franchise tagged. I don't believe they got an extension done, which doesn't shock me. So, especially right now it's 3-3, but trade deadlines, I think 2 weeks. It's a week 8 or week 9 now. I forget.
I don't know.
But it's a couple weeks away, so he could easily be a name for. I mean, I would love my Packers to get him, but I don't think the Bears would do that trade. But in New England, one of these other teams that are right there just need, or even Buffalo. Buffalo could use another receiver. So that'd be interesting to keep an eye on going forward. But regardless, good one for my Packers. And, hopefully the Bears can build on this.
And I just want to add real quick too about the Packers that, I mean, I think this is an underrated thing, but like elite teams win boring games. Like this was a boring game, and this is one, like you said, where a different team that's maybe less experienced could have easily choked this away because of what was happening early. I mean, like Chicago early looked like they, were going to come out a little bit hot. Packers stayed calm. They maintained their composure. They came out, they won the boring game. They, and I just think it's important, especially with what we're seeing with the Chiefs, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and also just say it because Packers and Rodgers aren't perfect. Week 1, they fell into that trap. They said they were expected to put a lot of points up, and then all of a sudden they're down 14-0, and Rodgers starts throwing picks, and then now you're down 28-0, and it's over. So,
right.
So yeah, very important that no one's perfect. But anyways, going on to the next game here, the Cincinnati Bengals, they beat on the Detroit Lions. Not a close one, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, 34-11. Once again, not much to say on this game. I mean, Joe Burrow really did what he wanted. Joe Mixon had another solid game, and I think we're starting to see what Jared Goff is without Sean McVay. Still looking for his first win without Sean McVay, which is a funny stat. But even Dan Campbell, some people felt that maybe a little out of line, but hey, he's the head coach, and I think that it was right for him to kind of call out Jared Goff because I know he wasn't initially their guy, but they traded for him. They're paying him a lot of money, and he's got to kind of step up and be the guy, or else he won't be next year. So, anyways, though, John, anything else to add in regards to this game, or what were your thoughts on it?
I don't really have much else to add. I mean, Bengals, they took care of business here.
Yeah, I mean, these next few games probably going to be this way. So I'll keep going down. Colts beat up on the Texans 31-3, like we both kind of expected. Jonathan Taylor, like we mentioned a few weeks ago, need to be more dependent on him. They have been the past few weeks. Had 2 touchdowns, 14 carries, 145 yards. Very efficient, too, with his workload. Granted, once again, it was against Houston, and we all feel that they're not very good anyways. So anything else to add in regards to this one?
I unfortunately picked the Texans to cover because I felt like, after last weekend's Bill Belichick and the Texans, like they got to keep this one close and always put some points up. And I was wrong. I can't get a read on the Texans. I'm just going to stop picking them to cover, even if I'm wrong. But good on the Colts. I don't know if you got to watch this game at all, but Carson Wentz, he only had 11 completions on 20 attempts, but he had a couple beautiful deep balls in that game that just is maybe a glimmer of hope that a healthy Carson Wentz, as he's getting more healthy, can be back to the Carson Wentz that we expect him to be moving forward.
I mean, I certainly hope so. Like, as you know, I've always been a little bit of a defender of Carson Wentz. I always feel he's got a little bit more slack than he deserved. Granted, some of it's been warranted. But yeah, so not much to say on that one. Good for the Colts. They get T.Y. Hilton back. We're seeing, like John mentioned too, I think also helps Paris Campbell. Both those guys back. Both of those kind of speedy, deep threats to help open up things for Pittman and everyone else. So hopefully Colts can build on that going forward. And then going to the next one here, the LA Rams took care of business against the New York Giants, 38-11. Had a huge second quarter with 28 points there. Once again, I mean, this was definitely kind of all-around performance. Matt Stafford, 4 touchdowns, only 6 incompletions. Darrell Henderson also had a good game on the ground with 78 yards and a touchdown. And then defense also forced 4 turnovers. So I don't really have much to add. I feel like that all says pretty much what it is. Giants are the Giants, Rams are the Rams. But anything else to add to that, John?
Welcome back, Daniel Jones. 3 interceptions. I think he had a fumble that he lost as well. Or he had 2 fumbles and he lost 1. Came back to earth after a pretty turnoverless start to the season. Other than that, I mean, the Giants just not a lot going for him. Kadarius Toney started off red hot. He had 3 catches, 36. Then he got hurt on that first drive, didn't come back. So just a lot of injuries for the Giants, which is really unfortunate, which is maybe, a little bit why Daniel Jones was forcing things in this one. Overall, the Giants over the last 5 years now officially hold the worst win percentage. And I don't know. Maybe it's too soon to start thinking about Joe Judge in the hot seat, but I know our resident Giants fan, Tyrone, he's not a fan of Joe Judge 2 years, not even full 2 years into his tenure, and is wanting a change at the coaching staff level. So I don't know. I think there's also a lack of talent overall on this team. They lost a lot of key additions that are being clearly noticed, but at the same time, I think, so like starting 1-5 in a year where there were some winnable games, I think coaching could play a factor. So we'll see what the Giants do moving forward. Overall, they're a bad team.
I also think it's important. Maybe Gettleman might need to go because I think he's been there
longer.
longer.
Gettleman needs to go. I don't know if we did it on the podcast, but you know that I've had my rant about Giants and missing on draft picks over the last 5 or 6 years. So I mean, yeah.
So we'll see because they do have 2 first-round picks. So maybe they'll want to do that with a different GM and or head coach. And they can also do that. A lot they can do with those 2 picks, depending where they fall. So that'd be important to see because they could either one of those picks might be even high enough their own to get a quarterback, or they might be, or if they're not high enough, they can move up to get a quarterback, or get a quarterback and get something else with the other picks. So we'll have to see how things go in New York. Unfortunately for New York fans, whether you're Giants or Jets, just tough to be a New York fan there. Just focus on basketball.
The Jets were the team that was previously the worst record of the last 5 years. They had a bye week this week, so the Giants, with their loss, overtook them.
So it's not easy being a New York football fan, whether either side are on. So that sucks. But anyways, now going on to more notable teams here. The Kansas City Chiefs, they took care of business, got back on track, and beat the Washington football team 31-13. A little sloppy at first half, but then they cleaned up in the second half, and their defense also played a little better this game as well. Started gelling a little bit, and also for Washington though, dealing with a bunch of injuries. I know Antonio Gibson missed most of the fourth quarter. I saw that. I might have him on fantasy, so I'll let you go first, John. What were your thoughts in regards to the Chiefs getting back on track here at? I always forget. It's a FedEx Field? I don't know. At Washington.
Yeah, FedEx Field. Good win for the Chiefs. I can't say I'm super impressed, though, because Washington on the season is allowing 30 points a game. So that was right in line with what Kansas City did. I mean, sure, they won, but I think Kansas City's just held to such a high standard that, like, the 2 turnovers that they had, or sorry, 3 turnovers, because McCole Hardman lost a fumble. I forgot about that one. The 3 turnovers that they did have, that's just not good enough for Kansas City standards. They got to clean that up. I mean, Tyreek Hill has, the last 2 weeks, dropped the pass, then went right into the defender's arms right behind him. He's got to clean that up. overall for Kansas City to really be back on track for me, I need to see more out of them offensively when it comes to that turnover department. But good win. I think it's really impressive that their defense, even against a Washington beat up offense with Taylor Heineke at the quarterback, holding them to 13 points is still impressive. Because this Chiefs defense has been the biggest concern I think for their team. So for them, maybe they can take this as some momentum, start to build upon this defensively, because we know their offense, even amidst turnovers, is going to put up points. And so if they can clean that up and the defense can start to figure things out, then yeah, Kansas City can return to the Kansas City that we expect them to be. For Washington, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, offensively, I don't know what you can really ask of Taylor Heineke. Guy is supposed to be a backup, and you're missing players. Another right tackle, Sam Cosmi, I think he got hurt during this game. And like you said, Antonio Gibson missed time. Curtis Samuel can't really stay healthy. There's just a lot of injuries plaguing this offense. And then defensively, like I said, they're projected to be really good, and they're allowing 30 points a game, the most in the NFL. I don't know what's next for Washington.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. I don't put much this. I don't know if Ron Rivera is really the one to blame. And a little bit off topic ish, but also we know they're dealing with a bunch of other stuff organization wise. So
True.
And that could easily be having a trickle down effect. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, once again, missing on Fitzpatrick, who I expect they probably built the offense a little bit around, and he's been out for some time. And yeah, it's just kind of been unfortunate because I guess we both think I definitely felt that they would be better coming into the season on paper. We're starting to see depth is an issue for that D line. They're tiring out, and Jamin Davis hasn't really popped. William Jackson has definitely been underwhelming. I thought he'd be better. Seems like another bad Landon Collins year. He seems to have that, up in 1 year he does good, 1 year he's just bad again. It's just all that. So, and then like you mentioned, injuries has been an issue for them for a while. So we'll see if they can just get something going for them, because really they should be like 1-5 also if you're not counting that Giant game. But
Yep.
yeah, for the Chiefs, like I just mentioned, I feel like they have a little bit of the Warriors syndrome. Like before they got Durant that second year, where that second year they were kind of just cruising, had the best record, but then they just Steve Kerr was always saying, oh, they got these guys they need to lock in because we get too sloppy. I feel like that's what's going on with Kansas City, and it's just football though, so they're getting it's more noticeable because there's just more losses. Go ahead.
I was just going to add that, like I mentioned earlier, because I was talking about winning boring games. Kansas City, I think the new strategy that I've noticed for opposing defenses this year, and the key that you can really see it is the Chargers, is teams are just sitting back and saying, we're going to let you beat us underneath. And if you have to go on a 13, 14 play drive to score, so be it. They're not going to allow the Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman deep stuff. They're not going to allow these big plays. And they're forcing Kansas City to just play more offensive snaps, which is potentially leading to some of these mistakes, these turnovers, to where previously they didn't have to deal with that because they would score in like 5 or 6 plays. So it's an interesting strategy, and we got to see how Kansas City adjusts, because I can't imagine that Andy Reid, in the offensive mind that he isn't seeing this and noticing this and trying to work it out. I think one thing that does hurt them a little bit is the lack of a Sammy Watkins type presence, who's not necessarily built upon the speed, but can be that third option behind Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and kind of be the intermediate short kind of guy that gets involved a lot there, because we know that Kelce gets involved a lot there, but that's the primary focus underneath is going to be to stop him. That's why Sammy Watkins thrived. So I wouldn't rule out the Kansas City Chiefs as a potential team to go out and try and trade for a receiver. I don't think they're going to go for someone big, but somebody that can maybe be that Sammy Watkins type role that I think they're really missing right now.
I heard my boy, one of the guys, he said this a few weeks ago, but my guy Chris Sims, he mentioned, hey, Michael Thomas would be a great. That's what a guy like you. But I'm saying, they need like a route runner like that, a guy that isn't breaking on speed, but hey, I can find the holes in the coverage, and reliable hands. Obviously, like we just mentioned with Tyreek, just a reliable guy that can get 5, 6, 7 yards at a time, and then they'll open up more. So we'll see how that goes for Kansas City. But I'm not sure if they could get Michael Thomas contract wise. They probably have to trade like Frank Clark, which wouldn't shock me. It's Kansas City. They've been known to move pieces if they have to. So, but regardless, go in for them. They get back on track, and spend longer than I thought it would, but that's fine. So now going on to actually one of the more exciting games of the early slate, The Minnesota Vikings win in overtime against the Carolina Panthers, 34-28. But really, I think if you just look at the numbers, if the Vikings should have won by more. I think that's more credit to the Panthers defense for getting some key stops. But John, I'll let you take it from here. What were your thoughts in regards to this game?
I think the Vikings have been impressive the last couple of weeks. They started off 0-2, I believe, and they're 3-1 since. Like we mentioned back when week 3, desperation is a real thing, and I think the Vikings do not want to be a bad team this year with the amount of weapons they have. So good on them for finally putting all of this offensive talent together and making it work. I don't know if you got to see the end of this game, but
Yeah.
the Panthers, Sam Darnold, I mean, he didn't get a whole lot of help from his receivers in this one. There was guys dropping balls left and right that were easy. Terrace Marshall Jr. ended up getting hurt, and so did Zylstra. I can't remember his first name. So that was the third and fourth receiver, both out. And so it was basically DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Obviously, we know McCaffrey's not there, and it was just a rough one for Sam Darnold when it came to his ability to, have a connection with anybody. But DJ Moore finally showed up at the end of this game, and they forced OT. They weren't able to win it, but I think this was a winnable game for Carolina if they were just able to execute better. I mean, Robbie Anderson caught 3 of 11 targets. DJ Moore caught 5 of 13. Like, their receivers just weren't catching passes that they should have caught. And even Matt Rule after the game, he said that Sam needed some help from his friends. Okay, he just meant his receivers need to help him out. So a good win for Minnesota, because in the adversity that they experienced at the end of that game with the Panthers coming back and putting up a miracle fourth quarter drive, they could have easily choked that one. But Kirk Cousins, in that offense, that they remained composed and they went out and got the win for Carolina. After starting they were 3-0, right? Now they're 3-3. So tough stretch here.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking back. So honestly, I know they were drop passes, but I still Sam Darnold,
he does need to be better. I will say.
He does. Yeah, he wasn't on point with it when they didn't drop passes. It just wasn't good with his reads, and it just seems like I'm not sure if it's him fully. Maybe it's not. It shouldn't be all on him. Maybe a little bit needs to go on Joe Brady. It just seems like the last few weeks after that 3-0 start, like you mentioned, teams kind of have gotten a feel for what they want to do. So I think maybe they need to mix things up offensively, and it just could be like you mentioned. It could easily be they're missing a huge part of their offense in McCaffrey. He is a big part of that running and even receiving wise. So that could be it too. But regardless, you have to adjust with injuries. It's going to happen to everybody. So, but yeah, I am surprised by Minnesota. Especially on offense, I think we take really a lot of those people for granted. I know Kirk Cousins. Everyone gives him grief, and granted, he's not an elite quarterback. I'm not saying that, but still, he's at that next tier down of very good, reliable quarterback, and he's shown that throughout these first few weeks. This team could easily be 4-2, and the Cardinals could not be undefeated if Greg Joseph makes that kick. Was it week 1, I think, or week 2 whenever they played? So it was week 1 or 2. I think it was week 2. I think Arizona won. Yeah, Arizona beat Tennessee week 1 So yeah, week 2. I mean, they could have. So, this Viking team, I think, like you mentioned, better than the record says, and obviously they're rolling here. And yeah, Kirk Cousins. I mean, listen, he's not amazing, but he's going to make the throws he needs to make, as opposed to like we just mentioned on the other side, where Sam missed some throws, missed some reads, and it kind of cost them the game here and put them behind the 8 ball early. So, so going to the Vikings, and unfortunately, as a Packer fan, not what I wanted, but hey, but yeah, starting to see. We'll mention a few teams later, but Carolina, one of those teams, jumped off to a fast start. Maybe I'm not sure if this may be us seeing them regress to the mean, to what they are. So we'll see though going forward. But going on to another kind of disappointing result was the Baltimore Ravens. They were all over the LA Chargers. They beat them 34-6. And once again, you look at the numbers, Lamar didn't really have to do much after, doing a lot the previous week. So, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this matchup?
I don't know why. Like once the moment the game started, I sat there and I thought, why did I pick the Chargers? Why did I not see this coming? Because this happened basically last week where the Browns run game was able to dominate the Chargers defense because that's what the Chargers want you to do. But if that's what you want to do offensively, all you're doing is leaning into your identity and you're going to have success. And the Ravens had success with anybody that was running. Devonta Freeman averaged 6 yards a carry. Lamar averaged 6 yards a carry. Latavius Murray averaged 5 yards a carry. I mean, like even Le'Veon Bell got involved. Like they ran for almost 200 yards on the game. But like you said, they didn't have to do a lot offensively because their defense just crushed the Chargers. I mean, their run game, like the Chargers had 26 total rushing yards, and half of that was from Justin Herbert. So I mean, they couldn't really run the ball at all. It seemed like that Baltimore front seven just gave them a lot of problems. And I think, like I said at the beginning of the year, the one thing that I felt like was going to decrease was Justin Herbert's completion percentage against pressure. Baltimore was dialing up a lot of pressure, didn't allow Herbert to necessarily get in a rhythm. Although I wouldn't put the blame on Herbert in this one. He had 195 yards and a touchdown, one interception. Wasn't spectacular, but it just didn't seem like the Chargers coaching staff necessarily had an answer for what Baltimore's defense was giving them. And so the game got out of hand pretty quick there. And yeah, disappointing result from the Chargers. I think if we ran it back, maybe we'd see some different things. But this is one of those games that I think the Chargers can learn from because you're going to see teams start to try and exploit you if some other defense has success like this against you.
Yeah. This is a tough one to take away from because, like you kind of mentioned, their Chargers defense just let Baltimore kind of do what they wanted early, and then I think that maybe that factored in. I feel like that factored into the fact they had abandoned the run early, which getting Eckler involved, I feel like is pretty key to their offense. And once again, people forget Marlon Humphrey's there in Baltimore. Even I forgot a little bit, and he matches up very well with the Mike Williams, Keenan Allen guys that aren't usually predicated on their speed. It's more their size and route running. And Marlon Humphrey does have one weakness for space. He doesn't have top end elite speed. He has great speed, but not top end elite speed. So I mean, I'm sure that he matched up fine with these guys. But yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Brand Staley at least didn't have a better game plan for the running attack, like you mentioned, because once again, played Seattle, when he was with the Rams last year twice, and played Arizona twice, and played also the 49ers twice. All great run teams, two of them mostly with their quarterbacks, but three teams that like to establish the run early and such. So yeah, we'll see if that's just the thing teams are going to do more often now against the Chargers. But going for Baltimore, 5-1. It was one of their few convincing ones, but I think this was definitely one that opened people's eyes because now I think I'm seeing them a lot more in people's top fives, power rankings and such. So going for them and for Lamar, it wasn't the prettiest day, like you mentioned, and the passing wise for Lamar, one touchdown, 2 picks, but they still got it done on the ground. So
I will add to just real quick about Baltimore. I think they're another team that sort of showed they can win in multiple ways against the Broncos and that defense. The Broncos took away the run game and they were able to win through the pass. And I was actually reading an article about how impressive this Baltimore win was because Brandon Staley, he was mentored by Vic Fangio at some point, and so he's been influenced by Fangio. Fangio's approach to Baltimore was to take away the run game and make them beat them through the air. I mean, Baltimore only put up like 24 points in that game, but Baltimore overall was able to win because just like this one, their defense had a great performance too. And so Staley took the opposite approach and he tried to take away the pass. And I would say for the most part, he did. I mean, Lamar threw 2 picks. He only had 160 yards. He was still pretty efficient, but it wasn't like he was torching him through the air. But that obviously allowed them to then kill him in the run game, and similar result for the Baltimore defense. They were just able to have success. So I think it's impressive that Baltimore has now faced 2, of the better defensive minds in the league that have attacked them in very different ways, and they were able to overcome both of them.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll see if Baltimore can keep that momentum up. But now going on to their division rival, the Browns. Browns were hosted the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals won 37-14. Yeah, it was just another impressive game by Arizona on both sides of the ball. For Cleveland, They were missing both their tackles, but Arizona was missing Chandler Jones and Cliff Kingsbury. And obviously, but I do definitely think that Nick Chubb was the loss of Nick Chubb was very much so felt this game. I know Kareem's good and he got injured, but they really needed the sledgehammer that Nick Chubb is. I felt like against the Arizona Cardinals, that didn't happen, and then obviously there's still the weird non-connection between Odell and Baker, which once again, maybe not this trade deadline, but maybe in this offseason, depending on how things fall. Maybe that's especially because I think they still have to extend Baker. Maybe they move Odell because they're just not connecting. They're not on the same page. Odell's, like I mentioned last week, Odell's been getting open, and then Baker doesn't see him or misses him. And then when he's not open, it's like Baker forces it to him. They have a weird thing going on there. On top of the fact that Baker's hurt, it's just been tough for Cleveland. But regardless, that's the NFL. It's no excuses. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, they were missing their head coach and they win. So I don't have much else to say in regards to. I've been impressed. I'm not sure if this was a Cliff. I'm sure this was Cliff Kingsbury inspired, but good game plan by Arizona. Cliff's kind of been proving, at least me, wrong. He's been being real creative in the pass or run game. Maybe the addition of James Conner has helped them add that more power element to the game, to their offense. But yeah, John, what were your thoughts in regards to this afternoon game?
I don't really know what to fully take away. I mean, good win for the Cardinals. I don't want to take anything away from them, but I didn't feel like we learned anything about this. Either of these teams in this one, the Cardinals just kind of took care of business. Meanwhile, the Browns have all of a sudden they're dealing with a lot of injuries. I think I saw that they now have 20 players on their injury report for this Thursday night game, which is a lot. Nick Chubb obviously missed it. Kareem Hunt was out for part of this game. Both of their starting tackles were out. Like they're just dealing with a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. So I mean, we'll see what this means moving forward. I figured that the Browns would have a better plan of attack in this one, so I was a little disappointed in the way that this one panned out because it seemed like even early when Kareem Hunt was still there, the Browns were just getting cooked. So sort of disappointed in that aspect. A team that I projected to be the second seed in the AFC, they're now 3-3. So yeah, I don't really know what to take away from this one when it comes to either team, but good win for the Cardinals. I mean, they put up a lot of points without their head coach, like you said, so that's got to mean something.
Yeah, and I will say a little bit. I'm just looking at the numbers here. Didn't watch the full game. I can't really remember the context of these, but apparently Kyler had 4 fumbles. He recovered them all, so that's something maybe to keep an eye on going forward. But regardless, going for the Cardinals, they are the only undefeated team left. But now going on to a divisional matchup that also occurred that afternoon. The Las Vegas Raiders beat the Denver Broncos 34-24. Denver was one of those teams, like we mentioned with Carolina, started 3-0, kind of gone downhill since. Derek Carr, good efficient game, 18 completions, 341 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. I read the wrong team. Josh Jacobs had a good game back, 16 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. He looked good. And obviously, Raiders, especially after what happened last week, it was a good win for them. John, what were your thoughts in regards to the Raiders beating the Broncos?
Good win for the Raiders. I think the Broncos, I don't know. I don't want to be harsh against them, but they beat 3 terrible teams to start the year, and since then they've dropped every game against any team that's competent. So I think they're just kind of falling back to what we expected. I would say they're probably the worst team in their division, and it sounds like a harsh statement, but they're in division with the Chargers and the Raiders, who both have 4 wins, and then the Chiefs, who, although they're 3-3, they're the Kansas City Chiefs. So I would say it's going to be a tough season for the Broncos because it seems like after the start they had, after the momentum that they've built, when they're facing teams that are a little more talented, better game plan, better coaching, they're not able to get over the hump. And luckily they're playing Cleveland on a short week where Cleveland is just dealing with a lot of injuries, so maybe that could help. But I think that it's probably start to be time to look at Vic Fangio and wonder maybe he's on the hot seat if they can't get things going this year.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But I hope for Fang's sake they can turn it around because I've always liked him. But yeah, I mean, good one for the Raiders, and Max Crosby played pretty well too today. Give a good shout out to him as well. And yeah, I have to watch more Broncos games because I would like to know what kind of the issue is because for the most part, winning the turnover battles and such. So yeah, well, we'll see this Thursday night because I'll definitely be watching that one.
The issue is they're not giving Javonte Williams the ball more.
Get
Melvin Gordon out of there.
Just looking at the numbers and stuff, yeah, that hurts, man. It's like they cap him at like 12 carries. Like, okay, you're done. So
in every game, he's
averaging like 4 or 5 yards a carry. Yeah, he's averaging, and he's always breaking at least one highlight reel run. Not a touchdown, but usually one highlight reel run. Had the one against Baltimore with like 3 guys on his back, and then didn't he hurdle a guy last week too against the Broncos?
Give him the ball more.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. But now going on to the last game of the afternoon, last but not least, Dallas Cowboys needed overtime, but they beat the New England Patriots 35-29. Dak with 445 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had a great game as well. So yeah, I'm just gonna throw it right to you, John. What were your thoughts in regards to this one?
I mean, playing Bill Belichick, especially in New England, I was nervous leading up to this game. I was nervous throughout the whole game. It was heart-wrenching for most of the game. But I think this is just another one where I'm just really impressed with the coaching staff and the way that they're able to win in different ways. I love the different game plans that Kellen Moore keeps coming up with. It was disappointing to see Trayvon Diggs go from the sky high of, oh my gosh, he got another interception, he got a pick 6. And then he and DeMonte Casey, who just random side, got arrested for a DUI earlier this morning. So that sucks. But they're on a bye week, so I think they'll figure it out. Anyway, him and Casey miscommunicated. I think on that play, I know a lot of people are putting all the blame on Diggs. I would say you blame Diggs for allowing the reception, but you blame Casey for allowing it to be a touchdown because Casey was the over-the-top coverage that at the worst should have just made the tackle. So it was a wild end of that game. I'm glad the Cowboys came out and won. And I think overall they're just looking good because they're attacking the opponent's weak points. They're putting out a lot of great personnel packages that are forcing the defense to think one thing when they're going to do another. Even just looking at the game-winning play, they ran the 12 personnel package, which for anyone who doesn't know, when you talk about personnel packages, the first number is how many people are in the backfield, aka running backs. So 1 running back, and then how many tight ends there are, 2 tight ends, and you can guess the amount of receivers and everything after that. So they ran the 12 personnel package. They're the most dominant team in the league statistically in the 12 personnel package. Most teams average like 40-ish rushing yards from that personnel package. The Cowboys average 97 a game, which is 40 more than I think the second best team. So they love the 12 personnel. And I bring all this to say that they use it to set up the pass a lot. You see 5 offensive linemen, 2 tight ends, Zeke in the backfield. You think, man, they're going to hit us in the mouth like they have all game. And then boom, CeeDee Lamb, play action pass against Jalen Mills, wide open, touchdown. And so I like how Kellen Moore is, attacking the opposing defenses and where they're weak. And good to see our old friend Jalen Mills from his Philly days still getting exposed by Dallas.
Yeah. In regards to that, the touchdown that Diggs led up right after the pick, Diggs, air quotes. Yeah, I actually put the more in Casey. He tried to make a play on the ball, and granted, he probably should have actually had a pick again. He just mistimed it. And I put that more on him because you can tell Diggs like lets up on the coverage because pretty sure he saw Casey. He's like, I'm not gonna get in his way if he does get the pick, or you'd have that tragic thing where they both run into each other, then he runs home free, which it happened anyway. But
I think in his mind, the way that they're scheming it is they want to be aggressive on the move because the safety is over the top to help if he bites.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one of those plays where 8 out of 10 times maybe Casey probably makes a better read on the ball. He just took a bad angle at that point. But yeah, I mean, this goes to more like this is what I was kind of expecting out of Dallas last year. The dominant offense and a defense. Yeah, it's not great, but they scheme and manipulate ways to force turnovers. They force the issue. They're going to either force turnovers or allow a touchdown. Okay, you got a touchdown. That's fine. We'll get the ball back to our offense that can, like you mentioned, do it, win in different ways, do different things. Hey, like. Was against the Chargers, right? Where it was just run down. We're just going to run the ball, focus on that. We're not going to be the air show. Then this week, a little more balanced, but Dak had 51 attempts and more of an air show. And yeah, it's just weird that maybe because it's just the NFL season, but Dallas 5-1, not I feel like not really being mentioned a lot, even though they're the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, they were only lost to a very close game against Tampa, which probably if Greg Zerline makes is on his A game, you're also 6-0. But that's the NFL. What happens. So yeah, I never thought I could see the day where I'm like, man, Dallas needs more love and attention. So
If you watch ESPN, you hear him a lot. Stephen A. just keeps calling him fake, but everyone else, yeah.
Hey, he keeps putting him in there. I see on Instagram. I don't watch ESPN. I see he's putting him in his top 5 in his power ranking. So I'm like, that's progress for Stephen A. That's respect. If Stephen A. is willingly putting them like in top 3 like every week, he much as he hates it. But regardless, it's a good one for Dallas. And yeah, you mentioned good. Kind of sucks. I just want to ask a question too. Would you rather you had them have the bye at this point, or maybe like later in the season, since like you don't like in fear, like you don't want to lose the momentum that you have going right now?
It's a because of where we're at this week, Dak, and it's kind of been swept under the radar because he's playing it off. At the last play of the game, he actually injured his calf. It's like a calf strain. It's not supposed to be anything bad. So it's nice that he gets the bye week to rest it, just because we know what happened last year and we don't want to risk anything. So that's nice. Also, with all the injuries that we've had with like Neville Gallimore and DeMarcus Lawrence and even Michael Gallup, like with the bye week now, we're getting all those guys back soon. I think Gallup should be coming back after the bye week, so that's nice. But I'm always a believer of I would much rather have my bye week later in the season, because then you got more wear and tear. You actually get a real rest closer to the playoffs, to where you don't have a long stretch leading up to the playoffs. So yeah, I would rather have it later than right now. And this isn't actually related to that question, but I will just add one thing: that Dak Prescott in overtime, 5 for 5, did not miss a pass. He was amazing. I think on his career so far, he's 100% completion percentage in overtime. He's 18 for 18. He's only played in 4 overtime games, so it's not like, he's got a massive sample size. But it just shows that Dak, when it comes to the matters that moment most, I believe in and trust in him, because he makes the right decisions and makes me happy. And big shout out to the defense too, because I think one thing that is underrated is in overtime, the Patriots got the ball first and the defense got to stop.
Yeah, and this last note on the Patriots, like I know it was a closer game, but really, I mean, it was yards wise, numbers wise, Dallas dominated this game, and even watching the game, like Dallas won more plays. It's just New England does a typical thing where they somehow stay in there. So yeah, like I said, like I mentioned, maybe not Allen Robinson, but New England needs to get a playmaker on their offense. I mean, and that's no knock on Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been very solid. That was solid O-line, solid pieces. They just don't have the one playmaker, game breaker that you need. You don't have a Tyreek Hill or even, Devontae Adams. They just have, or even just a good running back. So maybe they'll find out via the draft. Once again, we'll go back. I think we said this before, drafting N'Keal Harry over A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. Man, they really wish they could have one of those 3 guys, because that would open up a lot more. So,
yep.
We'll see how New England fares going forward. I did pick them to go. Go ahead.
No, you continue.
No, I'm just saying I did pick them to go in the playoffs. So I'm a little bit worried, a little more worried, but not too
Miami,
worried.
So,
Yeah.
I will add just random 2 things. I don't know why the NFL hasn't ever explored this, and I know it'd be a little hard, but I don't know. Did you watch this game at all? Did you get to see any of it?
I watched the second half of the Dallas.
I can't remember if this is first half or second half, but there was that QB sneak on 3rd down where basically, because of the camera angles, you can't ever see. Oh, camera just cut out.
I'm still here. Yeah, go ahead.
You can't ever see the ball technically cross the goal line. You can see at the end of the play when they're lifting the pile that Dak's entire top half of his body is over the line. So you'd assume he scored, but with the NFL rules and the way they call it, they don't assume. So if they can't see the ball actually cross before the knee is down, they don't give you the touchdown. And then on the 4th down, I can't remember who was it. I think it was Bentley that made a great play for this the Patriots defense, where Dak went for it again. He popped it out. But But in soccer, they have a sensor in the ball and sensors along the line to where you can tell if the ball has crossed those sensors on the line. Now, it would be a little tough because you can't necessarily tell about the knee, but I'm sure that there has to be some sort of technology the NFL can put into the game to where things like this are a little more cut and dry because the old way, like this has happened in multiple games, not even just Cowboys games, but it seems like if you're the defense, you actually getting in the way of the pylon cam is very beneficial because then they can't necessarily see when the ball crossed. So that was just one random note. And then another note, because like you mentioned with the yards and everything, Dallas actually had a lot more. There's that drive where Dallas drove the whole length of the field to get a touchdown. Another one where the Patriots didn't really have to go far at all to score is Mike McCarthy went for it on fourth down, like really deep into the Cowboys' own territory, where it was like 4th and 2, 4th and 1, but they were on like their own 30. I don't really like why I don't like that Mike McCarthy does that. I like that he goes for fourth down a lot more than I've expected him to after going from Jason Garrett, who never did it. But Mike, we need to chill with these fourth down fakes and, going for it deep in our own territory because that was dumb. I can't hear you.
Mike was muted. I can go on a whole spiel about the whole ball sensor thing because, NFL's behind on that. We still have, I'll just put this, we still have old guys, and no offense to referees, I know they work very hard, but we still have old guys running around trying to spot where a punt went out of bounds and things like that. Like,
get with the times.
It's 2021. Like, NBA has all these, they're all teched out pretty much too. For the most part, granted, it's an easier game to officiate, I think, per se, but still, like.
But I mean, that's actually a great point. Like a sensor in the ball could just tell you where the punt went out of bounds.
Yeah,
and then you get it right every time.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna get too in the weeds. But basically, long story short, I think it's because the NFL's. I know NFL's cheap. The owners are cheap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyways. Now going on to the next game, which is the Sunday nighter. The Seattle Seahawks faced off against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, even though it went to overtime, they cannot pull out the win, although there was controversy about them even sending it to overtime because they got the time to, set up and spike the ball at the end. But Pittsburgh wins 23-20. Geno Smith strip sacked by Mr. TJ Watt in overtime, which set up the game-winning field goal for Pittsburgh. And, that was curtains. So, John, what were your thoughts in regards to the Sunday nighter?
I don't really know how to feel about either of these teams. I've already said this before about other games, but for the Steelers, I expected them to put up way more points than they did. I did not expect this game to be close, but they were only able to put up 23, and it took overtime to do it against a pretty bad Seattle defense. So, there's that. On the other side of the ball, Seattle actually had a lot more success offensively than I expected. Alex Collins at 100 yards rushing with a touchdown. Geno, for the most part, looked pretty good. So I don't know how to feel about either of these teams. For Seattle, it's going to be tough for them to win games without Russell Wilson, basically, because we know that their defense isn't going to be able to, keep them in a lot of games unless the Seattle offense is putting up a lot of points. And the other side, like I said, I expected more out of the Steelers. But big shout out to my guy TJ Watt because, as you know, you were talking with me at the time. That strip sack fumble recovery got me 3 points when I was down by like 1.5 points in my fantasy game. I had the Steelers defense, so literally, basically, the last defensive play of the game for the Steelers. He won me the game.
Yeah, should have submitted that. That probably gone viral. But yeah. So in regards to this game, obviously going for the Steelers. I'm still not going to say Seattle's defense is fixed. This is Steeler offense has struggled for the most part. And, even though they had a good week before, kind of saw that again this week. Big Ben, I think basically at this point he's hit or miss, man. Like he's going to make a handful of good throws and then the rest is just like, why are you still playing? And on the flip side, Geno's okay, but this offense is so built and kind of dependent on Russell Wilson making magic that it's hard for anyone to step in. And once again, you saw in the numbers. Tyler Lockett, I don't think had a great game, and TK did not have a good game either. So they had to lean on the run game. And luckily, Pittsburgh not great depth on the D line, and I think that's what also helped Seattle kind of get going in the second half was the fact that they were able to tire out that D line, run the ball, and such. So, yeah, not much to take away in this game. I mean, once again, Pittsburgh's defense, like we've mentioned all year, kept them in the game and literally won them the game here. And as long as the offense doesn't mess things up, mainly Big Ben messing things up, they can win games. It's a la the, was it 2015 Broncos? The Broncos were Peyton Manning, whereas like Brock Osweiler and Peyton Manning for the year, where their defense won the games, they ran the ball, and they just took care of the ball. A little boring way to play, but hey, it works. It wins championships. So, not saying that Pittsburgh absolutely will, but not going to be a fun team to play against going forward, regardless the way they're playing. So, good win for them. They get back to 3-3 and kind of right back in the mix of things in the playoff picture for the AFC. And now going for the Monday nighter, a little bit of a shocker, but the Tennessee Titans pull off the upset and beat Buffalo 34-31. Took some late Derrick Henry heroics as usual. He just kind of ran Buffalo to the ground. But John, what were your thoughts in regards to this Monday night thriller?
This is why I love the parody of the NFL. I hate the constant debates of who the best team in the league is, because it was the Buccaneers and Chiefs, then it became the Rams, then the Cardinals, then for some reason last week it became the Bills, and now all of a sudden I don't know who it is, but it just changes too much. The NFL, anybody can lose. The Bills lost this one. I was a bit surprised. I thought their defense would do a lot better than they did. But, man, Derrick Henry was able to do Derrick Henry things, and he did it on his least amount of carries so far this season. So, really impressive from the Titans. I knew that Derrick Henry was capable of this, but I just figured that with the Bills' defense playing the way that they were, they'd have some more answers here. Although, that being said, I'm not worried about the Bills defense by any means, because Derrick Henry is very different. There is no team that is able to replicate what the Titans can do with Derrick Henry. The guy is a freak. For the Bills, I mean, listen, they could have forced overtime if they wanted. They wanted to go for the win, put the ball in their guy Josh Allen's hands. He slipped, unfortunately. Even if he didn't slip, I don't know if he gets it. But I don't think there's any shame in losing in this game. I think the Titans are, one of the more underrated teams. Just because they've been dealing with a lot of injuries with the wide receivers, and Tannehill just hasn't had the time to build up chemistry yet with Julio Jones. So I think the Titans, they're still a really good football team, and overall they came out, they were the better team on this day, and King Henry reigns supreme. But for the Bills, I guess defensively, you can take this and try to learn and be better against the run game moving forward, because this could be a team that they face later down the road come playoff time. But other than that, I don't think it's an overreact kind of a game like a lot of people are doing, like I said, with who's the best team in the league, and all of a sudden this would somehow knock them out of contention. They're still a really good football team.
Yeah, right with you. I think it's just Derrick Henry. We see him do it literally almost all season, just run teams into the ground. If you don't have a big enough lead, that's what they're going to do. And then granted, whenever you come up, stop Henry, then they have answers now with, A.J. Brown, and Tannehill's a good enough quarterback to capitalize on that. But for Buffalo, maybe we'd like to see them established run a little bit more. I feel like they kind of abandoned it pretty quickly. Granted, I know this is not a great Tennessee defense, but once again, kind of got to give your defense a rest from dealing with Derrick Henry all game. Yep. It's kind of the chess match you have to play. Either you got to get ahead or not. But credit Buffalo. I give credit to Buffalo. It was a tough win, and some people criticize that fourth down call by McDermott. I understand it, kind of, but
you wanted to go for the win, sometimes you just got to do it.
Yeah, and there's 1 yard, and you have Josh Allen. Like most of us would have expected him to get that. So I think that they'll overcome that, and we'll see what happens. And I know Dawson Knox, I believe he injured his hand this game. Granted, Buffalo is going into a bye week, so hopefully it's not too serious, and they'll get him back because he's been a key contributor. But yeah, good crucial win for the Titans with the Colts on their heels, and yeah, like you mentioned, this could affect things down the road because they're both 4-2, and this could affect home field advantage and such. So we'll see what happens there.